this episode today, I want to talk about the difference between responding versus reacting. It's something that's been on my heart, on my plate, on my mind for a few weeks now. I'm in a business group that discussed this topic, and it was really interesting to me because I don't know if I had ever analyzed it myself. If you guys haven't been awake over the last several weeks and months, we're in a recession, and whether you agree, whether you've changed the definition like some people in Washington have, we're in a recession, and that's 2 quarters in a row of the GDP falling below a certain percentage, and we're there. And there's a lot of fear from employees and employers about what to do. And I want to encourage you today, before we get into the topic, don't be afraid. There's nothing that fear can do. You need to be prepared. You need to be wise, but don't be afraid. There is times in life when life itself or things outside of our control throw us curveballs. And whether you're a baseball fan or not, you can understand the concept that there are just things that are going to happen. And so I want to encourage you, don't be afraid, first off. The subject I want to talk about in regards to this ever-changing, it's COVID, it's recession, it's election. It's been so many things over the last 36 months. So I want you to take away today, this respond versus react. I'm going to define it as such. The difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is something happens to you and you quickly make a decision, a proclamation, or an exclamation about that situation. You didn't really think it through that much. You didn't pause and analyze. You didn't take a moment, a day, a week to see how that situation or that circumstance could have been done differently. And that's why, going back to responding allows you to take a breath, to pause, reflect, gain wisdom. Maybe it's going and meeting with a mentor. Maybe it's getting advice, reading a book, gaining some more insight on something. We've been seeing this a lot this week with the student loan discussion. Everybody on social media, might even be you, so heads up, is debating back and forth. I actually had a friend of mine, or more of an acquaintance, messaged me on Facebook. He didn't like my position, which I didn't really take a position, except I think that you should have to pay for the loan you decided to take out. And it's funny, I heard there was some pushback with that, with the PPP thing, and that was an interesting point. My friend, said, well, why are you okay with businesses taking forgiveness on a loan when you're not okay with people getting a loan forgiveness on student loans? And my response to that was frankly that, well, businesses were affected by a pandemic that was not their own doing. They were shut down. Their hours were, they were told they had to have XYZ vaccines or XYZ protocols and hours, and people had to work from. There were so many things that the government said we could and could not do, where student loans is completely and utterly up to the individual person's decision. And so, but going back to that, there's been a lot of people on social media on terms of student loans, and it's one of the episodes we just had, that have reacted to each other. And there's a lot of anger, frustration, bad jokes, bad memes, things that just really aren't helpful, to be honest with you. And, I'm going to challenge you as a listener or a watcher. If you're that person, I used to be that person a lot, and I still am tempted from time to time to be that person. A couple years ago, I just kind of realized that there's no good that comes from interacting with people on social media that I don't have a relationship with or don't know me. For example, our audience here at Down to Business, you guys listen often. You hopefully listen the whole episode and get the context. You know my heart, and more often than people where I make a blanket statement post, something that's honestly usually meant for jabbing, and it just becomes super hostile, and then people react back and forth to each other. So using that as an example, let's become people, business owners, employees, that begin to respond rather than react. Love and patience and grace is the only thing that's going to make things better. And we don't have the ability to do that if we're always reacting. Let me say that again. Love and patience and grace is the only thing that's going to remedy toxic situations, hot topic issues, things that are just not going well. And if we're constantly just reacting to the next thing, the next argument, the next thing you don't necessarily like or agree with, we're just dousing the flame with more gasoline. So I want to encourage you guys to respond. Take a moment, take a day, think, pray, meditate, whatever your situation, whatever your philosophical thing is. Make sure you're responding in a way that's healthy, that builds up, that helps encourage, that really has a viable option for a good result to happen rather than responding. And listen, I'm as guilty as anybody. I'm a passionate person. I really get excited. I'm passionate. I easily live in this bottle of frustration. So really, I'm preaching to myself right now. That's why I was saying a couple weeks ago, I heard this topic and just really wanted to speak on it here on the show. And let's become people who respond. Couple quick things that I want to kind of wrap this episode up with when it comes to practical steps on how to respond versus react is two things. The first being, make sure you sit back and analyze your plan of attack. You know, it's easy to, like I said, react and just kind of shoot a bow and arrow and try to move the target later to see if it hit. And bow and arrow, the arrow itself, excuse me. And so we don't really, that's what reacting looks like. Responding is, you know, having a plan, learning, you know, how to aim, and then, you know, doing something accordingly. So for one of the first things I would suggest is make sure you've sat down. Let's say in the business world, if you were looking to expand or looking to add people to your team, make a HR hire, whatever it is, instead of just going, we need somebody, let's put it on Indeed, right? Okay, what do we need? Why do we need it? How can they be a good fit? What type of person would be a good fit? What's the area that we most need right now? What's the area we might need later? That's what analyzing looks like. You're really thinking through, making sure it's filtered out, making sure that you've really, as much as you can, thought through it, prayed about it, like I said, focused on it. That's how we can analyze. The second thing I would suggest is when as things are changing rapidly, try to stay the course. We've talked about this a lot with like the recession back in 2008 and then coronavirus and COVID. A lot of people, you know, really changed things quickly, not necessarily by their own accord. Some did, and those were great pivots. There's a difference between reacting and pivoting. But if things are going well, and don't just change the course because outside forces, fear, news outlets, I mean, the list goes on and on. Stick to your guns, stick to what you know is working, trust the process, and really don't change just because you're hearing everyone say you need to change. You trust your business plan, you trust your process, you trust the job you took, right? Just give it some time, because there's always going to be that outside pressure, guys. There's always going to be that outside pressure, that noise to say, oh, you should do this or watch out for this. Stay the course. That's my big thing when it comes to, you know, this discussion on reacting versus responding. So hope this was helpful for you today. I want to spend a minute, you know, thanking all of you new listeners, recurring listeners of the Down to Business podcast. We're here to serve you. We're here to help you. We thank you for being a listener. We really need you to subscribe here, like, you know, comment, engage with us because we want to hear your opinion. My call to action today to you is what's it look like when you respond healthfully versus react poorly. I'd love to hear an example. You can encourage somebody based on your testimony here in the comments below. Hopefully people are inspired by the way that you're being either humble and meek and showing that you've maybe struggled with this or a time that you've learned and overcame. And it was a great experience. So again, guys, thank you so much. Xander Kirby, Down to Business podcast, where we focus on your business like it's our business. Have a great day.